Greetings and love to all of you. I would like to continue with Samia's story. Unfortunately, I have been quite ill and I have been unable to record until now. Please excuse my voice for the moment and let's get started. I decided I would not seek help from my brother Kareem because I do not want to live far from my father Joseph and my sister Nima. I will let Joseph and Nima decide what will happen to me. Joseph and Nima decided to pay the hospital to take care of me for as long as they could pay me. I spent 5 months in the hospital. That's how long my father and my sister could afford hospital bills. When money was out, they took me to live with them. When I was settled in my old room comfortably, I asked about my fiance Mustafa. Why did Mustafa stop visiting me in the hospital? They told me that he abandoned me and he will not marry me. This broke my heart and made me depressed and frustrated, and I started not thinking well. And I became very angry and put my feces on the floor anywhere in the apartment. Because Joseph and Nima were at work, nobody could help me go to the bathroom. When Joseph returned from work and saw the feces where I left it, he started yelling at me and sometimes even beating me. He blamed me for everything that happened. My mental state was getting worse and worse. 2 months later, my neighbor came to visit me. I brought my feces and threw it on my neighbor and hit her in the face. At this time, Nima decided to call my brother Kareem and tell him they couldn't take care of me anymore, and they asked him to take care of me. We came to an agreement for me to spend 2 weeks in Salma's apartment and then 2 weeks in Hala's apartment. Salma and Hala were making food for me, helping me enter the bathroom, and they cleaned me and showered me like a small child. But I was screaming at them and fighting with them a lot. I tried to beat Hala and Salma several times. After 3 months, Kareem decided I should go to the psychiatrist to diagnose my condition. When the doctor examined me, he decided I need to take therapy for my mental condition. He also told me if I stop treatment, my mental state will deteriorate again. I had to stay in the hospital until I got well. When I started the treatment, my condition started to improve, but I hated staying in the hospital. So I put extra hard work into helping myself to prove to the doctor I was ready to go back to my ordinary life. After a full month of staying in the hospital, finally the doctors decided I could go home. I am to go back to live with Joseph and Nima, but I wasn't very consistent with taking my antidepressants. That's why my mental state deteriorated once again. 1 month later, I was going to the store to buy something when I met Walid. I forgot to tell you about Walid last time. When I was 17 years old, I met a young man named Walid on the school bus. He liked me and he wanted to marry me, and I also liked him and wanted to marry him. When Walid went to my father to ask him to marry me, my father refused because Walid wanted me to marry him in his mother's apartment. This means that he will not rent an apartment for me, and we would live with his mother in the same apartment as newlyweds. I wasn't too picky, and this was fine with me, but my father refused for this reason. The thing is, I can only marry when my father agrees. If he doesn't agree, I cannot marry someone even if I really want to. I thought to myself that Walid must have changed his mind about marrying me and told my father a lie about not renting me an apartment to get out of our arrangement. I haven't seen Walid or thought of him for about 4 years. When I saw him in the street and recognized him, I decided to take revenge. I started screaming for help, telling everyone around me that Walid raped me. People who heard me intervened and restrained Walid and called the doctor to check up on me. The doctor said I lied about that man raping me because I was still a virgin. Walid was set free, and I was taken back to my father. When they told him what I did, Joseph decided that I need a stable environment to get used to taking my pills regularly. He sent me back to live with my brother and his wives so they could help me with taking my medication regularly and help me get my life back on track again. I am back to living with Salma and Hala again. After 5 months, I fought with my niece Minna and I slapped her on the face. Then I immediately escaped to my father's house because I was afraid of what my brother Kareem would do to me if he found me in his house after what I had done to his daughter. And I don't think I need my brother's wives anymore. When I was 22 years old, I started to look for work. I found a job at a luncheon factory. but they fired me after a month because I couldn't stop myself from eating luncheon during work. Then I found work at a pasta factory. 5 months later, Hala died and she was only 32. It was a great shock for me. I cried a lot and drowned in tears. I felt that part of my heart had been taken off. She was like my sister, and I loved her so much. I felt guilty because after all she did for me, I couldn't do anything for her. After this tragedy, my brother Kareem began to search for a new wife. He thinks he needs more than one wife to be happy. Kareem at this time had a wife and 6 children. Every time he finds a good girl for him, the girl refuses to marry him because he is married with 6 children. 7 months later, I left the factory and stayed at home. Later, when I was almost 24, my brother Kareem found a girl who agreed to marry him named Fatma, and they got married on February 8th, 2013. Later, when I was helping my nephew go to school, I met a man named Ayman at the door of my nephew's school. He asked me if I were married or engaged, and I told him no. Then he told me he wanted to marry me, and I gave him my home address so he can talk to my father about it. My father and I agreed. Everything was good between me and Ayman. 3 months later, Ayman and I got married on May 13th, 2013. But Ayman was harsh with me. He was yelling at me if I did anything wrong, and sometimes he beat me. This is why I cannot love Ayman. I can't love a man like this. But I endured and wished these things would become better in the future. 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I was very happy because I would become a mother. I went to see my psychiatrist, and he told me to discontinue my treatment during pregnancy because the pills I take every day to stabilize my mental health can be bad for my baby, and I was afraid my mental state would deteriorate again, but I stopped taking the treatment for my baby. 3 months later, Fatma gave birth to a girl named Mona on October 23rd, 2013. 4 months later, I gave birth to a boy named Mahmoud. On February 23rd, 2014, 1 year later, Ayman left work and could no longer pay the rent of the apartment. We had to move to a warehouse owned by my husband's cousin. Later, Ayman found another job and started looking for another apartment. 4 months later, he found an apartment and we moved to live in it. The new apartment was very bad. Mice and cats were entering the apartment through the broken windows. I asked Ayman to fix it. He said he would do it, but he did not do anything. 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant again, and I stopped taking my antidepressants again. 4 months later, my niece Minna got married on February 5th, 2016. 1 month later, Fatma gave birth to a girl named Juwaria on March 7th, 2016. After 3 weeks, I gave birth to a boy named Muhammad. This was on March 29th, 2016. 7 months later, my niece Mena gave birth to a girl named Sumaya on November 9th, 2016. 1 month later, I discovered that I was pregnant again, and I stopped taking my treatment again. But this time, my mental state began to deteriorate rapidly, so I started refusing to take care of our apartment. Ayman tried to yell at me and beat me, but it didn't help. That's why Ayman decided to send me to my brother, because he couldn't bear me or take care of me. I went to my brother's new wife Fatma's apartment, and I sat a month with her, but she could not bear me either and refused to take care of me. And I moved to live in Salma's apartment during the next month. They took me to the hospital more than 7 times because I complained about my belly so much, and they thought I would give birth, but every time there was no birth. I know they were tired of me, but they never complained. Later, I gave birth to a girl named Mariam on July 12, 2017. I refused to believe I was pregnant. I truly thought it was just bloated, and that's why my stomach is swollen. When I started to take my treatment again, my mental state started to improve, but I still needed time to get back to being functional again. After giving birth, Salma started to look after my baby and carrying my baby, feeding her and changing her diaper, and I didn't want anything to do with my baby, and I can't believe she is my daughter. I even refused to breastfeed her. At the first month, my husband refused to send money to buy diapers for his daughter or to buy baby milk. These things are expensive, and my husband must buy them because this is his duty, and I am a housewife, not working, and I have no way to get money. That's why after 2 months, I was forced to send my baby to Ayman because this is the only way I can force him to buy what his baby needs. Ayman took Miriam and gave her to a woman who agreed to help him take care of her. 6 months later, I returned to my nature and started talking to Ayman on the phone. Then Ayman rented another apartment, and I returned to live with him again. 5 months later, my father-in-law died and left an apartment and a piece of land and even some money for Ayman and his sister. Ayman decided that we would move to live in the apartment left by his father, and Ayman's sister lived in this apartment too, but she refused to live with me and she moved to live with her uncle. At the same time, my niece, Mena, gave birth to a boy named Abdullah on July 13th, 2018. 2 months later, my niece Rama got married on September 7th, 2018. 10 months later, Rama gave birth to a boy named Omar on July 7th, 2019. 1 month later, Ayman's sister returned to live in her father's house and kicked me out. I called my husband and told him what his sister did, and he told me to go live with my brother Kareem until he finds an apartment to rent. I took my daughter Miriam, and now I live with my sister Nima, and I go to Salma's house 2 days a week, and my sons Mohammed and Mahmoud live with Ayman. Ayman comes to visit me 1 day a week so I can see my sons. For the last 4 months, I am still waiting for him to solve his problem with his sister, or at least rent me an apartment so I could finally be reunited with all my children. Thank you for watching, and once again, these are 100% true stories based on real events. We really hope you enjoy this channel. Thank you.